2010.
I will second.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Mr. Cassady?
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we have Public Safety Liaison appointment. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon. Approval of minutes is next on the order of events. We'll start out with our minutes from December 7th, if that's okay. I'm going to do this in reverse order. Let's start with December 7th. And normally I would hand it over to my colleagues, but for December 7th, I will make an exception. I will start out for December 7th, okay? Because I do have a number of changes, largely in the park report department. So if we would turn to page 2, the park report for December 7th. And I'm going to, I've got quite a few changes here, so I'm just going to start reading how I believe it ought to read. And I'll try to note the changes as I go along. Starting with the fourth sentence. Mr. Katz clarified, is everybody with me? Okay. Should read that because of the reduced number of regular meetings, there may be a need for special meetings. Okay. You tell me when you're ready. Ready?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on, next sentence. Mr. Cassady suggested that if the need arises, the chair of the park board should consult with the chair of the board of trustees.
Okay.
Now, the next part that I'm about to read is simply a more or less a movement of thought that somehow wound up at the end here, but it's really a continuation of the same line of thought, and it wound up at the end, which made it very confusing. Mr. Katz once again addressed the special meetings concern of Mr. Cassady. Mr. Cassady then suggested communication between the park board chair and the park board liaison. Mr. Katz said he would change the language to provide communication between the park board chair and the trustees.
That last sentence, that Mr. Katz.
Mr. Katz said he would, I can give you this. I'll give you my copy too, Al.
Okay.
Okay? Mr. Katz said he would change the language to provide communication between the park board chair and the trustees. In that same paragraph, toward the end of it, where it says solely voluntary, advisory, and have no legal standing, the word have is missing in A. And then right after that, if you would strike that next couple of sentences, because that's what I covered previously.
So we're moving that Mr. Katz addressed.
We're moving that. That's exactly what we did.
Okay.
Right. So it's the same line of thought. Because the next sentence begins to talk about concerns over residents not in the unincorporated area of the township being on boards, and I didn't want those two to become confused. Okay? All right. A little bit further down on page 3, under review request for proposals for design work on East Orange Road Bikeway. Even though it was probably not in the template, we really, for clarity, should add the words between Abbey Knoll and Vale Canyon, so that we know where we're talking about. The first bullet point there should read, Mr. Scott Overturf reviewed the submissions in response to the request for proposals for design. And that's because I didn't start out by reviewing them, it was actually Scott who began.
Could you read that again, please?
Yeah, Mr. Scott Overturf reviewed the submissions in response to the request for proposals for design. And then the next bullet point is Mr. Katz reviewed the proposals. In that now second bullet point, Mr. Cassady said, please insert the word said. We are committed to continuing with our leisure trails, and this is an important link in that system, and will extend the East Orange Road project. Please remove the word with and insert the word the. Next bullet point, there was consensus to move forward. Please insert the word forward with E.P. Ferris. And again, for clarity's sake, I think it need be added at the end of that for contract negotiations for the design work. Next bullet point, Mr. Katz discussed a grant from Preservation Parks. And again, for clarity, I believe I said for a pedestrian crossing signal along our Owen Field bikeway. After the semicolon, it then says application was applied for, and please insert the word we, received a grant, please insert the word for, $11,250. And then that last bullet point should be removed. I believe there's a bullet point at the bottom that says Mr. Overturf reviewed the submissions. That should be at the top. Under the, right below that change order, under Resolution 09461, in the amount of $3,239.79 for damaged irrigation lines reimbursement and an allowance for work done being returned. So it was not only for the irrigation line reimbursement, but also for an allowance for work that had been done, that was done for less. I'm toward the end. Page number 4. Okay. Resolution 09464, and again for clarity, at the end of that sentence, additional irrigation along Owen Field bikeway. Page number 5. And again, some of these comments are not things that are wrong, they're simply for clarity's sake that they're being put in there so that when people review the minutes that they also have an idea of what exactly it is that we're talking about. Page number 5, under the fiscal officer report, second bullet point. Blah, 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 who works with Frank Gates Service Company, Avizent, comma, the company that provides Orange Township with Bureau of Workers' Compensation Services, comma. So that people know who that company is.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the company that provides Orange Township with Bureau of Workers' Compensation Services. Again, for clarity's sake. And then in that same paragraph, Mr. Frank recommended there should be a good communication line and question. Please insert the word question. Who would be responsible? Only got a couple more. At the end of that page, Resolution 09473,